approximately?
Right around there. Dan and I were talking.
Okay.
He's like,
Once
oh,
we
send
get
them
a
this, so I sent it to you
back,
and
we'll
my
drop it.
brother. Okay, sounds great.
Okay,
You should
7:05.
have it. All right.
Yep.
I figured you want that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Call the meeting to order. Certify compliance with the open records law.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gillis.
Here.
Councilmember Hartman.
Here.
Councilmember Hooker.
Here.
Councilmember Raisler is absent. Councilmember Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Schofield.
Here.
5 are present.
Next, we'll have the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would someone like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
We have a motion second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. If there is, please identify yourself for the record. Again, calling for any public comments? Anything submitted to us?
No.
Nothing submitted. Okay, next we move on to scheduled appearances. Fun Fest. I don't know what Diane's going to speak to.
Well, yeah, I guess Mike is supposed to be here, I don't know what happened to him.
Okay, well, whoever wants to take the floor and talk about Fun Fest, it's
Go
open.
ahead, Diane. I guess one of the things, first we have a question, we're wondering how you guys would feel about us putting snow fence back up around the beer tent and having a couple of police officers. Back in the day, that's how it used to be, and the police officers check the IDs as
No,
everybody
the
came in.
cops haven't checked IDs. And I ran Fun Fest in '93 and 2003. We did all the checking.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
This is,
The
well,
police
this
department,
this was before, this
Way
is when
before, yeah.
Shar was in and.
But for the last 30 years, at least plus, they haven't. That's
Well, we're
something.
just wondering, would it be more beneficial to us as a committee and running it and just better for everybody in town? And having somebody checking at the, like having a doorway coming in like it used to be?
Chief, if you'd like to address that, please.
Yeah, Diane, I think it's best handled by you guys as an
Okay.
organization.
Okay.
We don't have the staff to be tied up checking IDs
Okay.
available to us. So we would not be able to man a beer tent entrance to do that.
Okay,
So
okay.
we just wouldn't be available.
One of the other things is route for the kitty and pet parade, or kitty parade. And normally they've been coming down Main Street. Apparently, Stan, you had some reservations about that, or just
Yeah, I
concerns?
talked to Mike, and I said, I have no problem with it coming down Main Street, but just understand that if our officer has an emergency, you're not going to have an escort by an officer. So then that becomes a safety concern on you guys, having pedestrians on Main Street. So I don't know what type of volunteerism you have for that event, but just be aware that if all of a sudden our officer gets called away, you're probably gonna have to switch plans by either moving to a sidewalk or moving it back onto Madison Street and blocking off that road with your volunteers. But we would definitely escort you down Main Street as long as we don't have any other.
The officer has to leave, or whoever's doing it, that we take over and continue guiding it down the street.
If something happens and you're on Main Street,
Mhm.
I would prefer you guys to move to the sidewalk.
Just be
I
out.
can't give you the authority to block a street without a vehicle there flashing lights. But like I said, if we get called away, again, we have staffing issues, or gets called away, unfortunately, yeah, you guys will have to quickly adjust.
I guess we're kind of concerned about that too, being with the open container all weekend and, you know, being. That's kind of scary.
I'm forcing another full-time officer in, and we had this discussion in public safety. I plan on probably working 20 hours every day that week. I'm working Friday day shift, Friday night, and I'm working Saturday. I'm coming in to help on some things. I have to work all night Saturday. I'm coming in Sunday morning to work the parade and working as late as I probably need to on Sunday. So we have, unfortunately, terrible staffing situation.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're gonna do the best we can. I've asked the State Patrol to help us. I've asked Pepin County Sheriff's Department to help us. State Patrol has not come through. They have a sergeant that's going to hopefully make it to town to help us with the parade. We have the Sheriff's Department that has a large event going on in Stockholm. They're not able to give us any help between the dairy breakfast and Stockholm. So we basically have been put out there on our own, and I'm adjusting staffing levels to do the best we can.
Okay, well, just so we know too what's happening and who's around and who's available.
You know, I gave Mike my cell phone. I told him, you call me with any issues. I will be available that entire weekend. And I don't care if he gives you two, you have Katie as my cell phone. I don't care, Diane, if he gives you my cell phone either. Call me if you guys have any issues and I'll come out. I'll have a squad at my house all weekend. I'll come out.
And I think one other question that I actually had before I let Mike talk is the closing of the parking lot over here. When is that how is that, any road closures, when are they gonna take place? We kind of ran into an issue with the Sportsman Club because they're gonna use that parking lot and be coming in there like prior to 7 o'clock in the morning and parking there all day, boats and trucks and stuff. And then we're hoping that they're out of there by 3 o'clock or shortly after so we can get the beanbag tournament set up.
Yeah.
The only thing with that lot, that is a private lot. It's not owned by
Yeah,
the
we're
city.
aware of that. We've already discussed.
Yeah,
with-
so I mean, we don't have any control about who parks there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Madison Street will actually be closed
That's-
on like.
that's what we're
Tuesday-
wondering about,
Probably
the
closed on
streets.
Tuesday or Wednesday when your carnival comes to
Okay.
town. Because when the carnival takes up Main Street to Wells Street,
yeah,
and then a block off of that has to be closed. So essentially, there's a road close sign that goes up at that corner on Wednesday when the carnival sets up.
okay,
It's Tuesday morning
Tuesday,
after rush hour.
yeah.
Tuesday afternoon, they close, so Second gets closed Tuesday, and then Madison Street basically from First to Third gets closed down along with it.
Okay. We just weren't sure when exactly that was gonna happen, but, so, okay. You're up.
I guess I just more so wanted to confirm with my conversation with Chief Ridgway that the parade route will not have to be altered with the construction that's currently going on, making sure that's staying.
I didn't meet with Matt yet after our discussion, but yes, I was going to talk with Matt and make sure that that 3rd Avenue intersection is clear so we can continue to operate the parade in the same area instead of
Through
moving
that.
Third and Montgomery?
just that intersection. If you can work with the construction crew to make sure there's nothing blocked there, otherwise we're going to have to change the entire staging area for the parade.
Yeah, we can make sure that's open up.
So.
Did we need to ask about the licenses or anything? For everything?
So we have the 3 bartenders licenses on the agenda tonight, correct? And
One is being deferred at this point, but we are, at this point, when I get to the consent agenda, I will mention that one as far as deferring it until the next meeting.
Okay.
And then the other ones can be approved at the next meeting, and that's still prior to the event.
Okay.
So that won't be a problem. The other thing, as we said, when we're approving obviously also included in that group is the street closing and so on.
Yep.
And again, once we approve all that, it's like the council's giving our blessing to everything. I mean, those are the two, So, and whatever else needs to be cleaned up, as far when I use the word clean up, I mean also done what we'll do at our meeting on Wednesday prior to FunFest.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay? Katie?
I got nothing. I got nothing. We talked about everything already, so no, we're good. We're good.
Okay, while we have them here, anybody on the council have any questions for
I have one.
FunFest?
You were talking, Diane, about the fence around the beer tent?
Yeah,
And then you're gonna check IDs?
well, normally with the beer tent, there's a ticket booth area right at the end of the
Yeah.
bartending station or whatever, and there's usually at least 2 people station there, and they're supposed to check the IDs as they come up and buy the beer tickets.
Are you gonna give?
What are you doing, the wristband?
Your wristbands?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
It's just the reasoning to go back to the snow fence and checking, has there been issues that I haven't really heard of?
No, just, because of the, one reason we talked about is because of the small amount of police officers around the area, and just for community safety sake, wondered if that would be the way to go, is to go back to that and having the snow fence around it.
Limited access, then not walking to the bear tent from every possible side or.
Right, yeah, because it's, how do you regulate? I mean,
They still can walk outside of them.
right, yeah,
The argument we had before to get rid of it was the bring them out and give it to a minor, or
mhm,
it doesn't really matter. I mean, if
Right.
they're gonna drink, they're
yeah,
gonna, fencing it's not gonna stop anything.
Right, but then it's more on you for giving it to them rather than them for serving it to them.
and
Well, if you ID them and they have wristbands on when you sell it to them, there's no fallback. I mean,
Yeah, because somebody
Like,
of age
somebody
who
with a-
buys something, then goes hand,
It's
I
on the
mean, they're
person
subject
that
to.
gave The point of the
Yeah.
ID and this is to put it on tight enough so it doesn't slide off and all that, so. You're gonna need a lot, just to let you know.
Okay. Well,
I
something
like
to
your
consider.
fence out. Sorry that we can't help you.
yeah, no, it just, the whole idea in itself is what we were kind of wondering, and then it came up, well, do we see if we can get some officers to stand with it? Shar was there, and it was a good way for the community to be introduced to all the officers that are in the community also, and it was a good rapport with everybody, at that time, so.
And then I know it definitely goes back at least to the 80s was the last time it was done. As I said, I chaired Fun Fest in 2000,
Trying to think.
or in 1993,
Mhm.
and I did it 10 years later in 2003, so.
They
I
did
know
it
that
when-
goes back.
They did it when it was at the softball field. The beer tent was at the softball.
Way back, yeah, that goes back to.
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm old.
But that was, yeah, you weren't old enough to drink there, no. No. Drink there.
Remember, he didn't want the fence.
My parents were playing softball, that's why. I know.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
We will have a team on the grounds, and they'll definitely stop by and talk to
Yeah.
the ticket booth and things
Yeah.
like that, so we'll be there, we just can't stay
Yeah.
there.
Oh, right, yeah, we understand that.
Okay. Nothing else, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following matters may be acted upon by the city council utilizing a single vote. Individual items which any member wishes to address in greater detail or as a separate item on the regular agenda may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any council member. We have the minutes from the regular city council meeting from May 12th, 2021. Bartenders licenses, I guess we didn't have any other ones besides that. Anyway, picnic license for the Durand Improvement Group Fun Fest for June the 11th to the 13th, 2021. We have the temporary bartender's license for Diane Mack and Michael Norby Jr. The other one has been, as request of the chief, to be deferred to the next meeting for the Fun Fest. And then finally, a special event street closing request also for Fun Fest. That's everything on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve it?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. What?
So we're approving Mike Norby and Diane Mack.
Yeah, the other one is being diverted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's agreed to. Next, we move on to administration, mayor's report, just a few things to talk about. City Administrator Rasmussen and I did meet with the pool group back beginning of last week. Sort of got them up to date on everything with fundraising and just a reminder, the league conference here. It is October 20th to the 22nd in Green Bay. The one thing about it is they are starting to take reservations for hotel rooms July 1st. So or June 1st, July 1st.
July 1st.
So we have a little bit of time to think about it. If somebody wants an information sheet, just if somebody is interested in going, let's make sure Angie knows so we can get the reservations made for everybody. Also, I'd like to remind everybody to participate in coming up on Memorial Day morning at 9:45. They will have the short event down here on the river at the memorial down there. Of course, it's the honor guard with TAP. Memorial Park event will be starting at 10:30. Again, usually not too long, about a half hour, but again, good to have them back with a regular Memorial Day celebration. And one other thing I always like to, when local kids do well, I always like to mention it, like congratulate the Durand golf team for winning the conference championship, our golf championship last night. Any questions? Hearing none, next we'll move on to the administrator's report. Administrator Rasmussen.
I just have a couple of short items because I still got this, and we know, and we've been talking this a little bit, but Stan and some of his officers have been spending a lot of time in some we'll call some of the city cleanup issues with vehicles and things of that nature. Just a reminder that it is summer season, and with the recent rains and weather, grass is growing. We know we haven't had any complaints yet, but we know they're coming. So again, we implore everyone, just keep your lawn mowed, things of that nature, so we don't have to get on you and issue tickets or issue letters and potential tickets and things of that nature. As again, things move forward here. You're gonna kind of bring the Patty Blunt issue to hopefully a finale close. We had an issue this week. We received a check from the State Department of Corrections for about $1,600 for restitution payments that she had been making. As I shared with you in past meetings, we had received our insurance report, our insurance payment, but it was less the $1,000 deductible we had. At this point, my recommendation would be that the city keeps the $1,000 deductible we had. At this point, my recommendation would be that the city keeps the $1,000 for the continue to collect in the future. They agreed to that, so you'll see tonight's batch. So that is the end of that situation financially for us, and we have been made fully whole. So good news there. Just one final issue I shared tonight. I know I talked about this with a couple other people, in the room here, but the shed issue we had in the neighborhood, there was a zoning variance that we talked a little bit about. That has frankly been withdrawn at this point. The gentleman of the sheds with him taking care of itself within.
We got to sign one up today.
Oh, okay.
Sign one up today.
Oh, okay. Well, family situation.
This administrator. Well, okay. From Ehlers. 3rd Avenue. Sean. See? Okay, the floor is.
Should be, yep. Couple of pages first.
Well, big picture, what we're going to go through today is the financing for the street projects. And we've got material we'll touch on. I'm sure there'll be input from others than just me as we go through the material. And for to interrupt with any questions as we.
There.
All right, perfect. So if we go page, just to about here and what 2 point. And there's always a little bit of a challenge on the sometimes Sometimes it necessitates some interim financing till you get the money from the grant to pay the bills come due. But assuming that's manageable, we're looking at a that will need to be borrowed to cover the now. And that will be paid back by the levy. That will be the stormwater utility are responsible, and we'll have that discussion. And then whenever we look at financing projects, lower the current payments that the city is making.
Sean, excuse me. The total borrowing 1796 portion will be funded by water sewer. I mean, with the rate increases, sewer and water.
So yes, I'll have a slide in a little bit that shows, it doesn't have all of the impacts of the rate incorporated in yet, so it's pretty conservative. It's based on actually your last audit numbers was 2019. But the way it works is we would give the city a schedule to make. This is after going through a competitive bidding process to get the debt locked in at a fixed interest rate. And then we'd have subschedules saying this is how much the debt levy, or this is how much the water utility. So for your future budgets, you'd have, and on the sewer, the water, and the stormwater, the intention is to have the rates and charges of those utilities pay those portions. Yep. Okay. Okay. The next page. Perfect. So preliminarily, we're looking at a 20-year bond issue for all of the new money funding of the 2012, kind of what I was just talking about a second ago. We would, what you see on the screen right now are estimated interest rates about 25 basis points above the current market condition. And then from payments and interest and what the total debt. So in the next couple of years, total payments of about, estimated right now again, about 350 to 60,000, and then it drops after that into the future. That's just a couple of years left on it, and extending it out over a longer time. We're planning, and you can see it in the current refunding there of the 2012, we would refund it but then pay it over the same term interest rate, so you pay less on the interest each year.
So refunding is really like a refinancing with your mortgage. Okay, so if you've got a level, so if there's only this many years left, that's all there. Great, that I think most of us understand. Because and again, about 25 basis points above the current market. We just did an issue yesterday for the village of Bangor, smaller than Durand, but not too much different. They their interest rates were about 1.7% is what they got on the issue. And on an issue like this paid back over 20 years, typically the first 8 years are non-prepayable. So starting in that 8th year through the 20th year, the city would have the option of prepaying if you wanted to. The interest rates would be locked in, so if rates went way up, you'd have the option of prepaying or refinancing at that. Okay, so this slide takes into consideration the existing debt that the city currently has outside of the new debt, and then it also adds this new debt in. And so this year, your payment for principal and interest on debt is on your debt levy. So your general fund is responsible for about $170,000, $180,000 a year. For the next 3 years, 22, 3, and 4, we're expecting it to be around $200,000. So it'll be a small increase, well, this is a good $20,000, $30,000 increase
from where you were this year when you add the street projects. And then over time, the levy will go down, and that's by design. You know, we could keep paying around the 200,000 a year, but as you'll see in a second, what we're thinking about is your CIP, your capital improvement plan. There are future projects coming down the line, and how can we fit those in without hopefully having too much of a spike up in the levy? And then the other thing we keep in mind too is the useful life of what you're financing. So street improvements usually have a longer useful life, and paying them off over a 20-year period. Car, what are those, probably have a 5-year life if you're lucky, 5-6 years. So certainly you don't want to be financing something like that over a longer period of time. Okay.
And one thing it points out is, as all the meetings we've had and we've discussed is, you keep on talking about 2025.
Right. And
That's why we're not doing.
Next slide, is a perfect segue there, Mayor. So this next slide, what we've got here, issues added to the slide that we just looked at. So right now, the blue would be the new debt after we would complete the finance plan for this year, which has the new money and the refinancing. The red lines, or red bars, are representative of approximately $1.5 million in borrowing in 2025. So that if you borrowed in 25, the payments would start in 26. Now, we just did level payments there. Likely what we would do at that point is keep those payments at around the $200,000 a year. The green bars, and this is the one we've got to think about. It's a number of years out yet, but at that point we'd be looking at borrowing, based on the preliminary numbers, around $2 million or 2.5 million was it, Scott? I think, right?
$2 million for general obligation.
$2 million in general obligation. So that when we with the existing debt and then the future borrowing in 25, if we proceed. It's around $2 million in new money. That's where we would likely see the need to do some increase above, because again, you have to pay the debt back in 20 years. Now, what else could come into play on that between now and then? Grant opportunities might be there for this. And remind me, Scott, of what that project is in 2029.
That is the Prospect Street highway. Yeah, Highway 25.
Yeah. So, you know, there's some time to see, but we wanted to give the council kind of a future vision. If we do these projects and lay them out, you know, what would be the potential impact if we have to finance 100% of the project costs? Okay. So any questions on this?
The only other thing I'll throw in the mix, and again, nobody knows, but you know, Russ and Sean, obviously, you know, we're all aware that there's an infrastructure bill coming out of the federal government. Nobody quite knows what that's going to look like. But you know, could that potentially impact this 2025 project or something beforehand? If, again, there's time limitations, then you know, we'll post it. And clearly Cedar's done a nice job in the past of looking at our grant opportunities, and clearly Sean is available there as well.
Okay. All right, now, we had a question about the utilities. So what we've got on here, maybe I'll get up for a second. Based on your 2019 results, and we'll update this as I think your audit's fairly.
Yeah, it's within the next couple of weeks, and we'll at least have a preliminary for Sean to use.
From 2019, you had the sewer and water together about 265 able to cover debt payments. So how does that 265 get used? The 265 is after you've paid operating expenses of the utility, so salaries and wages, different expenses that you'd have. There's a couple debt issues from 14 that it pays those first, principal and interest. And then we're refunding that 2012, and it's getting intermixed with this new bond. The refunded portion over the same period, the new portions over 20 years. When we add all those together, we want to see this debt coverage be at least 1.0. And we have 2 years, 22 and 23. For today, we did these with a level payment over the 20-year period for the water portion the sewer, and this is a sewer portion that was part of this issue. What we would recommend we do, as long as the council's okay with it, is we can make smaller payments in 22 and 23 to make sure this is over that one times. But the other point that was made was you have done some adjustments that are likely to increase those revenues. And so that'll also help in this next year overall.
Sewer and stormwater, which we made and we talked about for, sewer is 5% a year. The water, as you were aware, would have to go back through PSC, but we talked a little bit about a simple rate increase, potentially.
Yep,
If
which is a
if necessary,
3%.
A 3%.
Yep. So big picture wise, we can do a little adjusting here before we lock into the final plan, factor in the 2020 audit results, and as well as the steps that the council's taken on rate adjustments to make sure that the utility portions are being paid by the utility.
Scott, I'm sorry, that 3% you just mentioned, is that the max we can do, or is that what we need to do?
That's the max we could do in a simple water case. Recall that we went through a full-blown, I should say, you went through a full-blown right before I got here, when Josh was still here. And that, I forget what the increase was, Matt. I hate to put you on the spot, but that was more than a 3% increase.
That was like 10%.
Yeah.
Go to the next one, if you would. Now remember, we talked about as part of this, we would look at doing some refundings. What you see here, two of the issues, one done in 2017 and 18, are with a loan program with the state of Wisconsin called the State Trust Fund Loan Program. It's a program that works pretty good for small-sized loans, but since we're doing new money financing, the current rates we're paying on these two loans are 3.75 and 4% interest rates a year. The current market in the securities market, these are the rates we had talked about. So with refinancing those two issues, paying them off and putting it into the new larger issue that we're doing for the new money and these refundings, the expectation is over the remaining term of those loans, which goes out to 2038, is that we could save somewhere around just a little bit over $100,000. It's not all in one year, you're saving it each year over time. But and Scott and I talked a little bit about this, if there was an intention to prepay these, right now you can make prepayments on them each year. Putting them into the refinancing, we give up any prepayment options until 2029, but it didn't sound like there was much likelihood that we would be making prepayments. Okay. So we would recommend that refinancing as part of the new money issue. And Scott, if we can go to the next page.
Just before we jump, Sean,
yeah.
early on, Sean mentioned a true interest cost back on page 3. You don't have to jump there, but 1.89%. That's basically what this total amount comes out to be over the course of, so you see it starts out that these first few years, you're talking about interest rates below 1%. Now up here, they get closer to 2 and probably a little higher as you take this out even just a tad farther. So that's, again, assigning a true interest cost and
it's the blended rate.
I think the blended rate of all of this. So again, as you can see, especially these first, my goodness, less than 1% for the first 5 years when we're currently paying 3.75 and 4% on those state rates.
Now, you do have one other loan that you use to fund incentives in your tax increment district. Is everyone on the council familiar? You have that special district you're trying to promote redevelopment. This is another state trust fund loan. We also think this one, we could maybe do an RFP to local institutions to see about refinancing. Right now it's at 3.75, and we would ballpark, we could be able to get rate 2.5 or maybe lower. Why are we doing this separate from the other issue? This issue, because you're doing it to try to promote redevelopment and you're doing what would be like a business incentive, you're not really funding what would be a governmental purpose projects. They're more, it's activity government can do, but it's not public activity. It's more what's considered private activity. So we have to do the note in a way that it's not exempt from federal income taxes. Now, normally when you do a governmental purpose loan, if I were to buy it, or Scott was to buy it, the mayor was to buy it, when the city makes the payment to those people and they get that interest earnings, you don't have to include that in your taxable income. on a note like this, where it's not for a governmental purpose, it was more for an incentive business purpose, you can't do that. So this note, interest rates are still very good and better than what we had back in 15. We think we could save some money. So our recommendation on that is we do like a separate RFP, probably to local banks. We've done a few of those over the years here too. And if we get a rate better, then we can accept that proposal to council and lower the interest rates on that. This loan, Scott, if you go to the next page, is paid, as I mentioned, by the tax increment district. The tax increment district, just a quick update for you, is doing well. And we're expecting some additional development out there. That's this $2 million in potential value.
Quick Trip.
Yeah, right now, the TID has 3.1 million. The taxes are just under 24 mils, so it's generating about 75,000 a year. You're using it to pay this debt back, this state trust fund loan. Again, by refinancing, we can lower that expense a little bit. And then I think, Scott, you were saying that as part of this project, there would be another 150.
About 150 at this point for
Yeah.
those 3 projects.
So if you look at the cumulative balance over here, over the whole life of the TID, it ends with a balance of over $1 million. And that presents a future discussion issue for the council as to whether there's other projects you want to do, or when you finish with the TID, the value goes back to the other taxing jurisdictions, including the city's general fund. So on the 150 Scott mentioned, the TID should be able to afford that pretty easily, given the cash flow that we're seeing here.
So this money that we're talking about for what we need to do for
Quick Trip.
For Quick Trip, that we can do it within this. We're not going to have to do another issue.
This 700,000, we would do a separate issue to refund that. That was that bank note that I was talking about. And that after paying that over the whole life of the TID, the TID still has $1 million left for other things that you could do other projects with. Included in that million, though it sounds like you've already committed to 150.
150, yeah.
Yep, so that would, if we paid that would take it down to about 900,000 left for other things.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't need, I think Scott and I talked about, I don't think we need to borrow that 150,000. We can work it directly from cash in the TID.
Okay.
Or maybe a short-term advance from another fund paid back by the TID with interest, rather than having to borrow it.
All right. Okay.
All right. So that, the last thing I wanted to mention, just timeline-wise, at your meeting in June 9th, there would be some resolutions before you to start the borrowing process, pending any adjustments, either suggestions from the council or other information that Russ or Scott has. That would officially start the process in July. Then we'd have the debt sale, where we would bring competitive proposals back to the council to review and make a decision on whether to accept or not. And then that would probably by late July, you would have cash in hand to pay invoices on those street projects, as well as the dollars to pay those loans off that we're talking about refinancing and locking into lower interest rates. So that would be the timeline moving forward.
I want to publicly say much thanks to Josh. Josh spent the time on the phone.
Yes.
I had a little update. We talked this morning, went through some of the things. Josh prepared his presentation. We were meeting on some other things earlier afterwards, and Josh spent some last minute getting this back to you. So please, man, I'll certainly talk to him again, but thanks for that. Just a couple other things I just wanted Sean to address that we talked about earlier is, so we've had some discussions now about this pool issue. And so, I put that out to Sean, and maybe I'll just let you go with that and chime in as necessary.
Yeah, so just some things to think about, some experiences that I've been involved with on projects with donations. Now, everyone is unique, right? There's no, everything is exactly the same. But one thing to keep in mind is that you can, once you've committed to borrow for something, even if it's on an interim basis, if the donations don't materialize, so I'm talking to you mostly about the worst case scenario, at some point, I'll use a hypothetical, let's say you do an interim note for $1.5 million for a project, the pool in this case, with the thought that maybe long-term you're covering some portion of that as you're the city's contribution, the rest of it's gonna come in with donations. If between the point you take that out so the project can start getting constructed until the point it's due, say 3 to 5 years out, the balloon payment is due, you don't get that, you're gonna have to refinance it, and it's gonna end up probably going to the levy, because at some point, the donations are either there or they're not there. And if you remember that one slide where we had the existing debt of the city, and then we talked about that, yeah, this one, thank you, Scott. In 2025, the debt related to the Main Street, and then the other one in 2029, if there was, if you were counting on $1 million in donations but you didn't get it, we'd have to factor that debt into your levy for the future. So I would just say that I've seen circumstances where communities have tried to do that, and everybody has the best intentions. One in particular for a library project, they ended up about $700,000 that never got covered by the grant, so they had the city eventually had to say, we're gonna put this into our debt levy. It's gonna become part of our budget. And I've got another one, we're hoping, but it's even a bigger, it was a $1.9 million interim financing, which I don't know for sure, but it's probably likely that some of that will have to get covered long-term and get spread over the whole tax base of the city. So to the extent that you can do any sort of agreements, if you decide to go that route of any borrowing to get a project started on an interim basis, hoping that it'll be covered by donations, if you can either set up escrows that those dollars are being put away so that they're there, either up front that they're there, but for tax purposes, people don't want to release them until a couple years. The more you can set things up like that to make it less and less likely that the city would end up having to finance something at the back end of it, that's to your benefit. Because you don't want to get in that situation where at the front end you've committed that this is what we're going to commit, but when you get to the back end and the debt comes due and it's debt in the city's name, at that point there's no choice. You have to pay it. You're going to have to do something with it. So everyone's unique, every project's unique, every situation's unique, but just some experiences I've had in the past, you want to really approach these with wide open eyes about what the upside is and what the potential downside is as you look at them.
We also discussed the potentiality, we talked about that short financing period, probably locally, and Sean said he's had experience with that as well.
Yes, exactly, thanks for reminding me, Scott. Most of those, we don't, like we're talking for this 20-year bond going out to the securities market, where there are individuals that like to borrow or lend money and finance projects over a long period of time, which fits with what the city's need is here. On that one, I think unless for some reason we don't get, if we were to do that, bank attention, that's the first place I would go to look, is local institutions, maybe regional institutions, banks, and maybe even something that could be done on a draw as needed basis, where you draw the funds down as the project moves forward. We've had success using that model in a number of other cases for short-term issues like this. The banks seem to have a lot of appetite for those.
Things I share. I've never been involved in anything like that, so clearly, with the experience that Ayler's has, that Sean has. So.
And by the way, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the whole council, but I will say this, I think generally the feeling is that this group is pretty much, that they get a gut feeling that those commitments have to be made and are committed for that swimming pool before we actually, and again, I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but I think they want pretty rock solid that there's not going to be a lot of ifs when we make the decision. I don't know, you guys, we want to know.
Sure. No, I think that's a real healthy way, because
we don't want to be stuck with the idea. I mean, I think that's the feeling around this table. Yeah. Just to address the other thing that's going to have to be addressed in the next couple of months is the the potential yet of special assessments. Now, we're basically financing, because we have to finance the whole thing in.
Yep.
As far as repayment, where does that fit in? And where, as far as that goes, because I was saying, once we got this all in place, as far as having the public hearing to discuss, or, having the public meetings to discuss that. Could you give us an update on that?
And I did ask Sean that question from the standpoint, again, we talked to Russ about, communities that he's worked for, seen, and Sean obviously works with a lot of different ones too, and asked how basically they handle their special assessments, so.
Yeah, what I think is most important with it is, at least from my perspective and past experiences, is consistency. That if you've done it this way in past situations, sticking with it because is probably in your best interest, unless you've made the decision you're just not gonna do that anymore. Because not doing it and then coming back later and trying to bring it back is gonna create inconsistency, and I think that creates unfairness, accusations amongst the public, if you kind of go in and out on assessments. So what I've seen if you have it as a policy that these are the types of improvements that we assess, we've done it before, we're gonna continue to do it, and stick with that, or other communities say where assessments are not gonna be part of our model, we never do them under any circumstances. One or the other, kind of, and being consistent about it, I think is what I found is the best way. As it pertains to these numbers, just so that the group knows, we're not projecting any assessment revenue in here right now, and that we usually don't, just to be very conservative. If you got assessment revenue, your choice then is either to apply it to reduce the debt payments, is one option, or it can flow into the city's fund and maybe go to a future capital project down the road. Those will be options that you would have as a group to decide how you want to use that revenue.
Okay, the floor is open for any other questions for Sean. As we said, the timeline would look at next meeting to have the resolutions.
Yep, more of the formal stuff.
The formal resolutions, if everything goes, and have all the numbers tightened up with any little adjustments.
Exactly.
And you were saying that the preliminary audit will be available. That should help too, to see.
Well, yeah, it'd be helpful for Sean and his numbers and.
Just to update the
coverage. Especially on that revenue side of things.
Right.
Yeah, because we know that we had increases, so those numbers should be reflected within that. It's just at this point, Sean can't speculate.
Yeah.
Do we have to wait for that audit to get so we know what our debt ratio is?
No, we still have, and that's one piece that we spent some time talking about, but
borrowing capacity.
Borrowing capacity, right? That's the equalized, 5% of the equalized valuation, and we have those numbers from the state. So that really has nothing to do with the audit. So.
Right.
Next meeting, Sean, I'm assuming you won't be here? Or
if there's significant changes or something that we more, we'll do that.
But at minimum, you'd be available?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And if the group thinks of questions after today's discussion, reach out to Scott and we can get you answers on anything that might come up.
Okay, any other questions? As I said, prior to the official resolutions at the next one, if there are any other questions,
Absolutely.
be able to get them answered for anybody, anybody in the council who has anything. Okay, thank you, sir.
Great, good seeing everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we did put another item in discussion, possible action regarding the funding options. Is that we're really not taking actions tonight.
There's really nothing.
We did put it on just in case there was something that we had to do. So that's for item number 5. But as I said, we'll be coming back next meeting with that numbers. Next, we have discussion, possible action regarding the ordering of 4 ICX Dominion voting systems to be invoiced in 2022 for the amount of $15,396. And I don't know if the city clerk wants to explain this, or the administrator wants to explain.
The administrator wants to, it's up to you.
Okay. Well, your name's on the thing, right? So.
We have been discussing this for a little while with the county, getting new equipment. Our equipment is hitting the 20-year mark and needs to be replaced. And it is done countywide. Everybody in the county does the exact same machine. The county is the one that does a contract with Command Central. That's who they chose. That's who we had our last ones with. And this new machine is the closest to what we currently have. It's just a lot smaller, a lot more compact. But it's very similar to, it's a touch screen. You'll have the printer just like we do currently, so it's not a whole lot different for the voters coming in. It'll still be very similar to what we currently have.
Yes.
And the mayor, I'm sorry, Scott said that we've already got part of it budgeted for, we've already put some in the budget this year, and then the remainder is in for next year.
So we did have some preliminary discussions during the budget. We did put $6,000 in capital within general fund in City Hall to help fund this. So again, we're a little ways closer, 11,000 left. I'm sorry, 11,000, good math. Well, 9,000.
I was gonna say, wow.
It's one of those days where, holy cow. And I'm sorry, I was talking to Sean on the way out, as Angie probably explained that, this is basically done at the county level. And 17 years we've had the current one, 17 years. So basically it's one of those things that kind of gets decided for us, but clearly they want a, they don't want each municipality getting their own, and then come election time, that they have to monitor all. So that's typically the way every county does it.
They, and these would be operational at the spring election 2022?
February election.
For if there was a primary for...
We would receive them probably in October or November of this year, and then they would invoice us in January of 2022.
What do they do with the old ones?
We exchange them and we get a credit for them.
Was that what part of this?
Yep.
Did not
Oh, and I had notes, because I was making, the first quote he gave us was for 3 machines. We could possibly get by, they're supposed to be roughly, if you have 400 voters, each machine is roughly 400 voters. We've always had 5, which we do, with this machine, we would be able to go down to 3 or 4. 4 I'm just a little more comfortable with during the presidential election. We just have so many people coming through, it just moves things along a lot quicker.
Are we concerned about the name of it? Is it on the machine anywhere?
Oh.
So, yeah, I had concerned citizens, obviously, when they seen the name. Obviously, nationwide, there's been errors, some states more than others. Is this the only, so I get the county, that's what they got one last year, or what?
This would be, the contract's with us. The contract's with the
And
county.
we've used the same ones for 17 years.
Yeah. I don't know if that's, ours is a Edge, the one that we currently have is Edge. It's an Edge machine, it's a different company than, Command Central is one that we make the arrangements with,
Yeah.
they're the ones that service everything.
So we're not obligated by the county to get this particular version?
Oh, no, this is exactly what we have to get from the county. Yeah.
It's county.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. That is the one.
And the other piece too of the county is, so basically they have gone, it's part of the reason we didn't go out for a bid or anything on this, because this is part of the state bid list. So these machines are on that list. This is what the county decided for us, essentially, all the municipalities.
And they still have the paper roll.
Yes.
There's a paper roll backup.
It's
Yeah.
always,
Then I'm happy.
Okay.
it still has the paper on there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There would always be a backup.
Yeah.
So when they count those, when you count those after you count the paper ballot? Or you just take the numbers right off the machine?
During the process, we do testing on every machine twice before the election, and part of that is to make sure that I create a spreadsheet and say, here's how many votes I'm putting in for each one, and then I have to make sure that the total on the machine matches the total that I have. At the end of the night, only if there's a recall do they go through and cut each one of those apart and add up all of those. If
There was,
there's a
yeah.
recall.
If there's a need to go back and recount,
A recount, yeah. I'm sorry.
that would be,
Recount.
yeah, then you would have the paper backup, and that's what you'd use.
Yeah.
So the paper's only used for recount, to answer your question.
Yeah, sorry. But it's also tested before every election at multiple times. And there's a public, the public can come in and watch as I go through the testing process.
So the county has the command.
County is what?
The county is what makes us get this particular version.
They're in charge.
City clerk is in charge of the elections and contract county clerk.
The county clerk is in charge.
She's the one that's responsible for the whole county. It's her.
have to
wanted
be, first they have to be approved by the state though. I mean, the state of Wisconsin, and this is a brand new machine, it's not something that's been out on the market that I'm aware of, this is all brand new. I mean, they've been creating it the last few years. Last year, we tested it, and this year we've got to see it and test it.
So basically what we'd be going to do is, because I see you got, I mean, you got the amount on there telling you, but is this actually going to be part of the budget? Or are we saying that we, or do you want us to agree tonight that we are going to buy these because they're going to be ordered?
Well, you can, so clearly, we're ordering, what you're deciding on to order them, but essentially you're committing yourself to that amount of money, of
Okay,
which we
okay.
already have $6,000
Yeah,
set
but
aside.
but it's still, again, what we already have budgeted, plus we'll put the rest of it in the 2022 budget
Talk about the
to
2022
cover the
capital
cost.
budget, you'll see.
In the
it's-
capital, that'll be in there to cover the cost, yes.
And I think, Travis, to go back to what you're talking about, the county wants to keep the whole county the same. And they're the ones that picked this, so.
And I'll say the comment about, I understand when people see the Dominion name, but here's the other thing about it is, it's, after every recount, every audit that's been done, nobody's gone into court and proved that there's a problem with this company. A lot of people talk, but a lot of them, when they have to go in and raise their hand, and, because you can go to jail if you lie in court, and there's a reason why they're not in court talking it, and they're on TV talking about it, because again, to actually prove that there's any problem with this company. And again, as I said, a lot of them are now turning down their opportunity to go to court to prove it, because again, you lie in there, you can go to jail.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion concerning this? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second. We have a motion and second to approve the purchase of the voting machines for 2022. Any more discussion?
Are we obligated to have these machines? Or can we just do paper ballot?
Anybody can request a paper ballot.
Yes.
You don't have to use a machine.
Right, but are we obligated by the state or the feds to have a computerized touch screen?
Question?
Yeah, that is a good point, I've never, yeah.
I can say as a clerk and being through a paper count, it's not a pretty picture. There's more human error with the paper counting than there is
You think there's more?
with the machine. Yeah.
Well,
With the recounts,
Yeah.
they found that, no, I mean, for Pepin County, for us, it's been one or two paper counts. I mean, throughout the whole county, when they had to do the recount, I think they found maybe one or two votes with the paper. With the machines, they found none. Everything matched up with what the counts were. So, I mean, but you still can run into human error. Somebody checks a box, and they scribble it off, check off the next box. You have to try to figure out their intent, or if they write somebody's name on there, you have to figure out who they're talking. Make sure that you're voting or putting who you think they put down, the misspelling. I mean, there's a lot more human error with the paper.
Well,
My opinion.
I guess you're another piece of it. For those of us that have been kind of through the process more than I've never been involved in an election until this year. And the night of, I mean, there's cross checks of, you know how many people came in to vote, and that's exactly what the machines say. If they don't, then we sit here for another hour and figure out why. Now, clearly in a city bigger than ours, and that's a bigger deal. But, you know, here, I mean, I just don't know how you would catch that. I mean,
Our chief
the
inspector
checks and
checks-
balances are already there.
And she checks them pretty much every hour. Okay, I need the totals on all the machines. How many voters have been in? Yep, and not just how many voters I have. I mean, we have constant checks.
I was
and
impressed on how the election went, so.
Yeah, and she did, and the one thing our chief, yeah, I mean, she was checking always exact numbers match, everything was, and everything was, did a good job with that.
If you want to come in, Travis, we'll walk you through it.
Well, no, it's more about the computer program from the company is what obviously the issue is, so the technical support, so to speak. Just wanted to be accurate.
Yep.
I do have to say, Command Central, we've had them since I've been here. Awesome customer service. I mean, they're here, they're on the ground and in the area the day of the election if there's a problem. If you have any issues, I mean, I can call them anytime. So, can't speak highly of them, they're very good.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gillis.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartog.
Yes.
Councilmember Hooker.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember Schofield.
Yep.
All five in favor.
Next, we have discussion possible action regarding amending ordinance 535, authorizing all-terrain utility task vehicles on the city streets within the city of Durand and regulating the operation of such vehicles. This was just discussed at the safety committee. And I don't know if we want to take it, if Chairman Gillis, if you want to start the discussion.
Well, there was an error found in how our ordinance was written, not allowing ATVs to use Highway 25 or 10 Prospect Street. And we found that they could. And so we are changing the ordinance to allow people to access, to drive on Prospect to the nearest next block to get on the trail, or get on a legal street. Also, same thing for coming home, then get on a legal street that way. If somebody visits, you can do it that way too. So basically, we just added one word in the ordinance.
No.
Well, we made, so what you have in front of you, we're all looking at it, including you, Mark. So basically, the whole highlighted area is the change to the ordinance. What the committee changed, just one minor item. Under A, the second, basically where it says, block and only access a through city street, and that kind of, as we talked through that got us around some of the issues around PDI of getting there.
And there's
kind of a
and
very
so
limited
with some dead
situation.
ends out there, we don't want
Yeah.
someone get stuck. Well, you know, and the idea is they can get to a through street.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, people won't be able to run the whole street, just access the nearest cross street, I guess.
And the other piece, again, just to highlight for everyone at home, that clearly under B, the intersection of US Highway 10 and State Highway 2585 is prohibited for ATV use. So again, not looking at authorizing any, going through that intersection.
And as I said, hopefully this will get us to the point where everybody, whether any business, any home, or visitors to any of those will have full access. Yet, as far as somebody running up and down Prospect is what's the concern that would like turn into a raceway. But again, everybody will still have access. And I believe, Chief, if you want to sort of address enforcement.
Yeah, so once it's published, we will allow it, the ordinance will be effective. I think Scott had said probably publish next Thursday. But I agree with the mayor, safety concerns with opening up all of Prospect Street. I think it's just a better policy to just allow them to get to a city street, a residence or a business. We tried to write the ordinance so we didn't exclude anybody, our businesses or any other residents. So I think it's a good change to the ordinance. Some of the county roads are already open via the county ordinance, but we added those as well so that they would follow our ordinance, or that they could follow our ordinance, because we have a couple different things from the county ordinance. So.
Any other questions? Now, would somebody like to make a motion concerning ordinance 535?
I'll make the motion, we amend ordinance 535.
Second.
We have a motion second to make the amendment. Is there any more discussion? Although it's not a full ordinance, but it's still a change to an ordinance, I'll take a roll call vote on that, please.
Councilmember Gillis.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartog.
Yes.
Councilmember Hooker.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember Schofield.
Yes.
All five in favor.
As the mayor noted, we'll get this to the paper by the Tuesday deadline, should be in the Thursday edition, and that's when it officially would take effect then.
Yep. Discussion possible action relating to the potential sale of city property off street lots.
Here, we brought this one back just from the standpoint, we know we have some, okay, so maybe if I can just use the map here. Okay, so we talked about two pieces of property the city owns off-street properties to the north that we have not, that basically we talked about platting a CSM, that we still have work to do on that. We did have some discussion with the person who was interested in the lot to the south, that basically we're not making any changes to, and the question was basically back here tonight is, do you want to list that one? I mean, we don't have to list them two at the same time. is there any basically appetite for just listing the one now? Again, I think the recommendation we talked about was a minimum bid of $10,000 and see where that takes us. And we would get that published as well next week, and I would say we put it out there for at least 3 weeks.
Is that a sealed? bid?
Sealed bid, yeah. And as we talked a little bit, certainly we contact all the local realtors just to let them know it's out there and that there might be locals. We had some internal discussion about, I think most of you are probably aware that the county has a site that they're selling via auction. Clearly, there's a wider interest in that piece of property than I think there would be in this one. So I think if we just do it, internally with the city as a sealed bid that we open in, 3 weeks plus, and we go from there. If we don't get any bids, then we talk about maybe dropping the price.
And we're basing the 10,000 minimum.
Well, it goes back to the lots, again, as we talked to the city assessor, that listed their, his recommendation was for those lots, similar lots are about 12,500. Yeah, we can start higher if you'd like, but 10,000 seems like a good start.
Everybody comfortable with that number?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're just,
Take a
at this
motion
point,
like that.
and at this point, we're just saying the one lot, correct? Okay,
Yeah, because again, we have work to do on the other one to getting a CSM and certified survey map that ultimately then we get out there. I'm not sure the time frame. We haven't talked a lot to Russ about that.
And it's a sealed bid through like a time period of 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, just like any other bid that we've had bids on down to City Hall and has to be here by a certain time, and we would publicly be opened with, I'm gonna guess probably a few of you in the room.
Like our construction project.
Exactly, no different.
It has to be here at X date at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 2:01, we start opening the bids.
So it's like, I don't want to bid on it, but I want to bid on it.
I'll say-
As a bidder, I'll be there for the open.
It's open to anyone.
anyway.
So you said it's a
Neighborhood lots are assessed at 12.5. Clearly,
Then why do we do that? With that number, the way stuff's selling.
again,
I think it's
you
worth
can-
about 10, so that's about what I think it's worth, but based on the.
We had some discussions that there's clearly some challenges to building on the lot. But yeah, where you want to start it is,
Town would get it back on the tax roll.
Well, I mean, you might get 15 out of it if there's 5 guys that want it.
Right.
I mean, you don't know.
It says accept or reject any and all bids.
We also have those disclaimers in there.
yeah, I mean, you don't have to accept that again. The minimum just kind of provides a protection clearly to the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll open it up for a motion. So whatever amount they put on the motion.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and advertise it with a 10,000 minimum bid.
Okay.
You
Is there a second?
You need a parcel number on that, or maybe?
We'll have all that, Travis, at the
Yeah.
all. Again, I'm sorry, and
I'll say-
I didn't have that, but we know a lot.
Travis
Is there-
seconded it.
I'll say.
Second, okay, good. On the floor for any further discussion.
You need it, I got it, if you really want it.
Do you have it, Matt? We'll
What
put
is
that in the official.
Parcel ID 216-010-1240.
That's what it said in my motion.
Yeah, that's it. I heard you say that under your, you got that under the end. You memorize all those city lot parcel numbers?
Is it 1012?
216-01012.
216 is just the
So it's officially identified for the motion. Okay. Any more discussion?
I know we're contacting realtors just to let them know, but there's not gonna be a sign in the yard per se saying it's for sale.
We can certainly do that too.
Are we
Yeah,
gonna-
and I'm sorry, thanks for bringing it up.
Are we
We talked
gonna
about
put
that.
one up there?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it'd
just,
be
yeah,
a
sign.
city Durand sign
For sale
that
by
says
Durand.
for sale by owner, sealed bid, blah, blah, blah.
See, yeah.
Yeah, so it won't be like an actual realtor sign.
No, right, but I'm just saying, a sign on the property saying it's for sale.
Could be something that we would try to.
And hey, if it brings in another bidder or two?
I'd say put it on a piece of plywood, but lot sale wouldn't even cover the plywood probably.
We know some people that are good at the plywood signs, maybe we can contact some of them.
Okay, are any more questions? Hearing none, since it's considering the sale of property, could I get a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Schofield,
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Hooker,
Yes.
Councilman Hartman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gillis.
No?
Final 4-1, motion's approved.
Sorry, that's 4-1.
Next, we have Police Department, and our monthly report, Chief Ridgway.
Just wanted to report on Fun Fest. I've been working with the committee on some stuff with Fun Fest. I just wanted to thank Matt. He volunteered to come out for the parade in the city truck to help us with intersections. Jamie had mentioned it as well. He's going to see if he can get a couple of guys to cover some intersections for us to help out as well. And then I thought, well, since he's offering, I'll ask him if he can help with the kitty parade too. So he's going to work at the kitty parade, and I thought too I could check with Durand Ambulance to see if they'll help us with the kids parade to help with traffic control as well. So we'll get all those straightened out. We always do. We'll make sure we get our stuff covered that we need to. But I'll be around all weekend. If anybody hears any concerns or has issues, feel free to definitely call my cell phone. But we'll have plenty of coverage at night for a foot patrol team and a squad car team, and we'll make sure we have it covered safely. But that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for police? Hearing none. Fire Department, Chief King.
You guys got the report in front of you. We had 10 calls last month, down from the month before. We did have our annual CPR class for everybody needing recertification. We are going to be losing one member. He was deployed. He came back, or is going to be coming back soon, but he already is going to be moving out of our area, so we're going to be losing one. But we're still staffed 34 active members and 6 senior members. So we're only down 2 people at the current time. And there's no plans to hire until fall. So we're sitting really well. The calls are listed, the training, upcoming events, Fun Fest, we changed it up a little bit and are doing a kiddie water fight instead of the adult water fight. Bring more enjoyment to the kids, to the community. We'll be participating in the parade and the Arkansas Creek Parade. That's about all I got.
Any questions for?
Yeah, I just have one piece. Chief King and I did talk about, so there are ongoing fire inspections with, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the company that we're with.
Fire inspection services.
Thank you. There was a minor complaint that which we have addressed, and that just some proper identification for we had 2 complaints that recently came in regarding this guy came in and said he's representing the city, and so we've had some discussions with them, and hopefully that is now taken care of. But our apologies for the oversight on that for the company.
Any other questions for fire? One other thing to mention, obviously the chief was we talked about on a future agenda due to the presentation about a truck. I'm not sure when we're talking about trying to get that on the agenda. Do we have room on the 9th?
Yeah. So we should,
or do we want to wait till the second one? But I'd like to get it done here. We need to get it, get that information in front of everybody. Would the 9th work for you?
Whatever date you tell me, we'll make it available.
We had some internal discussions on June, just not a set date at this point.
Okay, one of the 2 meetings,
yeah.
one of the meetings in June. Yeah. If the 9th works out better earlier than later, so hopefully that'll work. Okay, again, any other thing for fire? Next we move on to ambulance.
Director Miller's report is in front of you. I did, Mike typically can't make Wednesday meetings. He did just go a little bit of with our change in meetings. He had some May issue or some May numbers, and I said, well, we're really looking for April, so we did an update on that. That first item there, Mike and I need to talk about that next week. I know just a little bit about that. It's not a huge. Clearly, it's not an issue with we can't figure out where people are. It's more of an internal issue with some of the calls for our people. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that next week and what exactly is going on there.
That should be back up and running.
Okay, good.
Fire's on the same program.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, we had a 3-week downtime. It wasn't the company's problem. It was an update at the county level that put us down for 3 weeks.
All right, thank you, Gene.
Any questions on ambulance? Okay, move on to public work, engineers report, Russ?
Yes, quick update on your construction project. A1 continues to make progress on Third Ave East project, senior housing complex area for water main. Again, discuss that. That's where we had some conflicts with the sanitary. Sanitary main has been completed from Montgomery to Washington to Oth. They're currently up in the beginning of the S-curve area. We call manhole number 10. So that's going well. They had a couple rain days with the heavy rain last week and so forth. They had a couple down days, but they keep making up for that time. It's on schedule. The rain actually helped the dust control. Starting to get dusty on the site, so we're glad to get some rain. Even with the hill, with the heavy rains, that worked out well. Up above the senior housing project, they left that storm sewer system in. So any water coming down from Oth and above went into that storm sewer system and out through that channel before it went down the hill. And they put some berms in and so forth with the rain coming, so no major washouts. The road's can be traveled by local residents. Again, you have your good sandy soil material. So A1 intends to be completed with the sanitary sewer by the end of next week. It'll go slow now because they're getting up to that manhole at Dryer and Laneville area that's 20 feet deep. So all next week they'll be working on that deep sanitary and then the line down to Laneville and to Dryer for skid steer guy. Skid steer guy is scheduled to be mobilizing on June 7th. He'll have his sanitary sewer tie-in, so he'll be working on Dryer first, sanitary and water. We're gonna get that water main loop in that they completed to the reservoir and get that system in as soon as A1 gets their pipe in that area. So we can get that loop in that goes across the ravine before we make our connection at Oth with our PRV valve. So everything's going good, it's on schedule. Skid steer guy was in late last week up on the reservoir site. They completed all that work, but they got in and got it seeded, got the EMAT down before the heavy rain. Everything held nice, and actually if you go up there, there's some nice grass coming in already. They poured yesterday or today the reservoir outlet pipe discharge flume and the concrete outlet discharge flume. Concrete's been poured, it looks really good. So what work they've been doing, it's looking really nice. So pretty much that part of the Dryer Street water main loop extension project's done, and they'll be mobilizing June 7th. So everything's looking good, on schedule, if not a little bit ahead of schedule. So can't think of anything else, Matt. That's about it. So working good with residents. We had some access shutdowns, obviously, with the senior apartment complex and a senior complex. So we knocked on doors, let people know ahead of time that if you need to get out now, because you're going to be down, for a good part of the day. So that seemed to work. I didn't get any angry phone calls from everyone, so we've been coordinating real well with the residents, which goes a long way. So it's going good, as well as can be with construction.
Any questions for us on the project? Okay, thank you. Public Work Utilities monthly report, Superintendent Gillis.
And just one thing associated with that project, so the residences that live on Hospital Hill, Country Lane, Laneville, Grant, Lee, South, Jerry, and Madeline Court, right now, this afternoon, they've been experiencing low pressure. We had to throttle the water main down to about half or a little less than half pressure as they're digging through that corner. They're so close to the old water main. They're so close to the old water main and digging deeper than the old water main, so we throttle that pressure down so that we don't blow a joint while they're digging. So by the end of today, they should have that water pressure, if not back up to normal by now. I venture to say within the hour. they'll have it back to normal. So they might experience periodic things like that when we get into these deeper areas. We try to throttle that pressure down so that we don't blow a joint in the main. And if we do blow a joint, you know, we're not filling the hole up as fast either too. So I haven't got no calls, so they should be by the issue without any issues right now. So for those of you that have gotten phone calls this afternoon, that is why. The pool is filled, circulating. We just got chemicals roughly started this afternoon. So we're just kind of working on balancing out the pool. Into next week, we'll be adding some more chemicals, some cyanic acid and stuff to stabilize it even a little bit more. Our plumber's scheduled to show up tomorrow morning to change out the mixing valve. We are scheduled to open we are scheduled to open the first open swim Wednesday, June the 9th. Information will be out on the website and the Facebook page tomorrow. June 9th will be our first, our open day for open swim. Swimming lessons are still to be determined. Based off of staffing, we had a meeting this afternoon. We're still, every day we find a new staffing issue. You know, somebody calls with, oh, I gotta work this day now that I got scheduled for, or I got changed to this day. So we're still working through that. We think we have a minor plan for a week that we can get some lessons in for some of the younger kids. We did put a pool or a survey out online. We had 113 responses to the survey about needs for swimming lessons. Overwhelmingly levels 1 and 2. So when we can schedule lessons, it's probably going to be levels 1 and levels 2, and then look at 3 and 4 as we find out more staffing, our staffing availability. So we're still looking through that. We're still working through that. Sign up is going to be quick and short noticed. You know, it's just going to be, once we get it figured out, the times and the dates that we can offer it, we'll put it on Facebook and we'll put it on our website for sign up. We're probably going to do some sort of an email type sign up or an online sign up versus people coming and standing in line here at City Hall. So just keep watching our social media sites and our websites for that information. Any questions on the pool before I move on to the other couple things on the list?
Just even to clarify a little more on pool. So 113 responses though, but 200, basically for 220 children for lessons. I think it's fair to say there's no way we're going to be able to make those needs.
Yeah.
So there'll be some disappointed people out there, but we're going to do our best. As Matt noted, you know, basically get those lessons going to the best of our ability with basically the 3 WSI certified people we have who are also working jobs elsewhere. So,
as I said, the same thing I said at the meeting, the same thing I said on the radio, and the same thing I said to the pool group. We will offer as many lessons as we possibly can, and we'll do our best to do so.
And we are. Trust me, it's not going as fast as we would like it to go either. But it seems like every day I walk in here in the last week and a half, oh, my schedule changed, or oh, this changed, or oh, that changed, and just, we think we have a plan, and then we get another wrench thrown into our plan. So we are working on it as best that we can. Moving on, we're in the process of getting the parks and the cemetery ready for Memorial Day. Obviously, with the heat and humidity, the grass is growing like wildfire, so the guys are doing their best to get things mowed up. We're going to mow the cemetery twice this week. They mowed it Monday. They're working on trimming it yesterday and today, and then we're going to mow it again on Friday. We were going to mow it tomorrow, but it looks like we'll probably be rained out most of the day tomorrow, so we're going to mow it up again on Friday. The rest of the parks, I think, all got finished mowed at least once today and trimmed up today. So we should have the parks looking good for Memorial Day. Flags are scheduled to go up downtown tomorrow or Friday, weather permitting. That's all I have. Any questions?
Matt, going back to the water pressure issues, do you anticipate that happening again in this project?
I would probably anticipate it happening a couple, 2 or 3 times during this project. Just not, I'm not able to tell you what those days actually are.
Could you put that on Facebook?
We could, yeah. Today was, we didn't know, we didn't think we were gonna have to do it until about noon, so it was just kind of a last minute
It
decision.
might save some calls.
To that effect, I mean, we've talked about this, Matt's done a good job of trying to do updates on Facebook, but the contractors kind of change it up on them almost on a daily basis, so we try our best to stay on top of that, but we know that that's a very valuable.
We put it out there and then an hour later they change it, so then it makes you look, you know. I don't have a problem putting things like that out there, it's just hard for me to put out there what they're actually going to be doing more than that day. And most of the time, we started putting it on Facebook just to kind of give the residents an idea about moving their cars, and it just reverted back to the best thing to do is knock on the door, and knock on the door, and knock on the door.
I was wondering why Russ said you guys were doing that instead.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is kind of just knock on the door and say, hey, we're gonna be here in 2 hours, move your car over there, and we'll be in front of your driveway for 4 hours.
So in general, if there are water pressure questions, we can...
Yeah, if
Be
there's
pretty
water
comfortable
pressure
with that's going
question,
on.
if you have a water pressure issue at your home, I would suggest you call down here to City Hall. I did let the gals know that if we got any calls, to let them know in those areas that we have, that what's going on, so they can relay that to the residents if they call. If you live on the Hospital Hill or in that Laneville area, and you have a water pressure issue, the first thing I would do is call down here to make sure that we're not throttling the main for any particular reason before you contact the plumber or anything like that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Public Works Utilities? Hearing none, let's pay the bills. Future agenda items or future meetings, are there any other committees that need to schedule?
I think we're good. Obviously, the public safety is discussed earlier, is probably the only one that's hanging out at this point.
There's nothing else with finance at this point until we get to all that stuff from the council. Yep. And then I still had mentioned that I would like to have a finance meeting
or Thursday or
coming up after we get this financing in place, just to look at the overall picture again. And then,
And even just as filling these out, from the standpoint of, we talked a little bit internally about a finance meeting for Sean's presentation tonight, basically with the level of discussion, we felt that, that's probably something that the entire council should hear, especially from a long-term basis, the number of different topics that he had, so.